The train that disappeared with its passengers and traveled through time, a fascinating urban legend. Other stories, especially those from the somewhat distant past, especially those passed down by word of mouth from friend to friend and from family to family, are usually interspersed from one to another with elements of creative thought and imagination. They're called urban myths or legends, while they could be classified as widespread rumors. However, they are not necessarily figments of the imagination, as several legends are based on real events. It's just that in the event that there is some true core or some element of reality, sometimes it's not easy to discern and separate it. One such is the story of the train that disappeared with its passengers and traveled through time. In 1911, the railway company Zanetti offered the Italians a free test ride on their new train. Passengers enjoyed the ride, making small talk and enjoying their refreshments. They were happy and carefree. What they didn't know was that they would never come back. One of the sights they were waiting to admire was a new tunnel that went through a mountain. It was one of the largest built at the time. The 106 passengers and crew of the Zanetti train would probably have thought twice before embarking on their adventure if they had known what was about to happen to them. Just like the passengers of the Titanic, who set off on their first and last cruise almost a year later, they never reached their destination. The difference, though, is that no one knows what happened to the train. The train entered the half-mile-long tunnel in the Lombardy mountain and never came out. It disappeared. After the incident, the railways and the police searched every square inch, but found no trace of the train, nor of the passengers, with the sole exception of 2 passengers who had jumped from the train shortly before disappearing into the tunnel. Later, when the 2 passengers recovered from what had happened, they were questioned by the authorities, and one of the survivors told the story of their terrible journey to an Italian newspaper. Quote, "I heard a vague humming sound. Beyond the black smoke, I could see a milky white mist coming down the tunnel and literally engulfing the train like a wave." End quote. No one could come up with a proper explanation for this strange disappearance. Dozens had seen the train leave the station in Rome and enter the tunnel, but no one saw it come out on the other side. And somewhere here the paradox begins, as the mystery deepens even further, as it is reported that there are records of medieval monks from Medina who claimed to have seen a 3-carriage train with people in it. Note now that a horse was the fastest means of transportation at the time, and that railroads had not yet been invented in the Middle Ages. Then, in the 1840s, there is a report that Zanetti passengers were seen in Mexico. A psychiatrist at a local hospital left notes saying that a group of 104 Italians were admitted, all in a state of hysteria. Many years later, the train reappeared in Europe. On October 29, 1955, an old 3-car train appeared not far from Zavalichi, a small village in Ukraine. The controller, Pyotr Ostimenko, saw it move silently. Some believe that all the railroads in the world form a kind of interconnected web, an arrangement which has its own magnetic field. Consequently, trains serve as electrical conductors between the Earth's natural magnetic field and the artificial magnetic field. Where this strange theory leads, combined with an earthquake just before the Zanetti train passed through the tunnel, created a time anomaly and the train entrance that possibly sent the train on strange journeys through time as well as space. As all that happened to the Zanetti train and its passengers a true event or just some? Is it all a true event or some elements of it? Are all these reports of eyewitnesses reporting sightings of the passenger train in the Middle Ages or in Mexico and Ukraine at different time periods always referring to the same train? Is there any evidence of a train of the Zanetti company that something strange happened to, Or is this a combination of stories that altogether led to the creation of the urban legend? Could it be that this story that inspired Arnold Ridley's 1923 novel, The Ghost Train, or perhaps some personal experience? However, the above questions could be answered with more or less use of logic. The fact remains that if 106 people from the train altogether, the train itself, articles upon the train would have been written in the newspapers of the time, while the friends and relatives of the victims would have upset the universe, asking for compensations and the end of the penalties for those responsible who did not take care as it should for the safety of the passengers. But there are no such samples. From this alone, it becomes obvious that the story of the train that disappeared with its passengers and traveled through time is an urban legend that over time has been interspersed with various elements. Still, it's an interesting story, but perhaps not one to read on a long-distance train. I've translated this for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.